Okay, what if I told you there's a theory out there that says a massive economic crisis isn't just possible, but it's actually scheduled? Like it's part of a predictable 18-year cycle that's pointing directly at the year 2026. Today, we're going to break down that theory and look at the evidence behind it. It all starts with this one kind of scary number, 20.7%. According to the source material we're looking at, that is the current office vacancy rate across the United States. Think about that for a second. Nearly 1 out of every 5 offices in the country is just sitting empty. That alone is a huge red flag, but believe me, the story gets a lot more intense from here. Now, get this. The percentage of commercial real estate loans that are currently in default is already 11.8%. Why does that matter? Well, that's actually higher than the absolute peak it hit back in 2012, right in the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis. So by that metric, things are already worse. And that brings us to the central question, right? If the numbers are this bad, if we're already in worse shape than we were after 2008, why hasn't everything just collapsed? The argument we're exploring today says the crisis hasn't been avoided at all. It's just a ticking time bomb, and it's following a very, very old pattern. This is where we get to the core of the theory. The idea that what we're all experiencing right now isn't some random bout of bad luck. No, it's an echo of a cycle that has apparently repeated itself over and over again. The source material lays out this incredible timeline. You have a real estate collapse followed by a recession in 1972. Then, boom, 18 years later, 1990, same exact thing. Then, 18 years after that, 2008. We all know what happened then. Every single time, a real estate collapse was the opening act. And if that pattern holds, well, you just do the math. The next stop is 2026. So this is absolutely crucial to understand the argument. It says that things we blame for recessions, the oil crisis in the 70s or the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers in 2008, they weren't the root cause. They were just the symptoms. The initial spark, the very first domino to fall every single time was the real estate market. Okay, so if real estate is in deep trouble right now, why the delay? Why hasn't the bomb gone off? The source uses this really powerful metaphor. It's like the market has been pumped full of a financial anesthetic, a painkiller that's hiding a really, really bad injury. And that painkiller is the simple fixed-rate loan. See, back in 2020 and 2021, when the world was trying to stimulate the economy, interest rates were basically zero. So commercial property owners went on a borrowing spree, locking in these incredibly low rates. That means their monthly payments haven't really changed, even as the Federal Reserve has been hiking rates like there's no tomorrow. But, and this is a huge but, there's a critical difference here. Unlike the 30-year mortgage you might have on your house, commercial loans have much shorter terms. We're talking 5, maybe 10 years tops. And what that means is all of those super cheap loans that were taken out back in 2020 and 2021, they're about to expire. The anesthetic is wearing off. And when that anesthetic wears off, the economy is set to run smack into what the source calls the debt wall. This isn't some abstract idea. It's the specific trigger that has 2026 circled on the calendar. A massive, almost unimaginable amount of debt is all coming due at pretty much the same time. How massive are we talking? Well, according to sources cited in the material, like Morgan Stanley, we're looking at least $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate debt that's all set to mature in the next 2 years. And the biggest single chunk of that matures, you guessed it, right in 2026. Now, these landlords don't have trillions of dollars in cash just sitting around to pay off these loans. Their only real option is to refinance, get a new loan to pay off the old one. Normally, that's not a big deal. But this time, this is where the nightmare really begins. This table just lays out the trap perfectly. Back in 2021, a landlord could borrow $100 million against a property worth $100 million at a sweet 2 or 3% interest rate. But today, that same property might only be worth $60 million, and interest rates are up at 6-7% or even higher. No bank on earth is going to lend you $100 million against an asset that's only worth $60. They might offer you $50 million, so how does the landlord come up with the other $50 million to pay back the original loan? The simple answer is, they can't. So right about now, you're probably thinking exactly what I'm thinking. Hold on, the Federal Reserve isn't just going to sit back and watch this disaster happen, right? They'll cut interest rates and save the day. But this is where the theory we're examining presents a really surprising and kind of scary twist in the story. Yep, this is the key question. The whole market expects the Fed to start cutting its main interest rate. So why on earth wouldn't that solve the problem for these landlords? The answer, according to the source, is buried deep in the complicated plumbing of our financial system. So to get this, we just need a quick definition of something called a mortgage-backed security, or MBS. All it is really is a big bundle of mortgages that banks package up and sell to investors, like the Fed. This gets cash back to the bank right away so it can go make more loans. And for years, the Fed has been the biggest buyer of these things in the world.
Okay, so here's the supposed catch-22 the Fed is in. Step 1, the Fed signals it's going to stop what's called quantitative tightening, or QT. Basically, they'll stop pulling money out of the system. That sounds great, but step 2, the theory argues that to support the U.S. government bond market, the Fed will have to sell its $2 trillion portfolio of mortgage-backed securities. Step 3, that massive sell-off acts like a giant vacuum, sucking capital directly out of the mortgage lending market. So step 4, even if the Fed is cutting its main interest rate over here, the actual money available for real estate loans could dry up, sending those interest rates through the roof. It's a paradox. The source material really doesn't pull any punches when it comes to its skepticism of the official story. It includes this direct quote to get that point across, basically suggesting that what we're being told publicly might not be what's really happening behind the scenes.
So let's just imagine this theory is right, and this wave of defaults in commercial real estate is basically unstoppable. What happens next? Well, the prediction is a domino effect that will absolutely not stay contained on Wall Street. This is the potential chain reaction. It kicks off with landlords defaulting all over the country. That, in turn, could cause the small and medium-sized banks that hold all that debt to fail. The banks that survive would get scared and stop lending, creating a massive credit crunch. And that could lead to businesses going bankrupt, mass unemployment, and, just like we saw in 2008, the problem could spread around the globe.
It's really easy to hear this and think of it as just an American problem. But we all need to remember 2008. A crisis that began with housing debt in a few U.S. states didn't stay in the U.S. It rapidly spiraled out of control, impacting jobs, retirement savings, and families all over the world. Financial crises, unfortunately, don't respect borders.
And according to the source, the first warning signs might already be here. It points to recent data, things like a drop in job creation and a rising unemployment rate. It's easy to write these off as just statistics, but in this theory, they're seen as the first cracks appearing in the economy's foundation. So the source leaves us with this powerful and pretty unsettling question. It pictures this predictable crisis as a runaway train, set to arrive at the station in 2026. And if this analysis of the 18-year cycle is correct, is the only real choice left to simply get off the tracks? It's a sobering thought for sure. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.